She stood in the store, her voice steady, but her eyes blazing. "I want to buy this store," she said. The clerk froze. The manager stammered, and everyone watched, stunned. What happened next would change everything. But let's start from the beginning. The small jewelry store on the corner of a bustling street exuded sophistication. Its pristine glass displays and shimmering lights reflected the exclusivity of its high-end pieces. Amara Jackson, a poised and self-assured black woman in a tailored business suit, stepped through the door one quiet morning. Her presence radiated calm authority as she moved through the store, her eyes lingering on the diamond rings carefully arranged behind the spotless glass. Behind the counter stood Susan Henderson, a veteran clerk with an air of practiced politeness that carried a subtle edge. As Amara approached and asked to see one of the rings, Susan's professional smile tightened into something colder. "We don't usually hand out pieces like that for viewing," she said, her voice sweetened with an unmistakable tone of judgment. Amara arched an eyebrow, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" she replied, her voice calm but edged with curiosity. The question hung in the air, an unspoken challenge to Susan's thinly veiled insult. Susan leaned slightly forward, lowering her voice as if sharing a private thought. Her words, however, were sharp and cutting. "I just don't think you can afford something like this," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "Maybe you'd prefer to look at our silver collection instead." The implication landed with a heavy thud. Amara's composure didn't falter, but the insult hit hard. The quiet hum of the store seemed louder now, an oppressive backdrop to the tension building between them. Amara's fingers lightly tapped the counter as she steadied herself, a flicker of anger passing through her otherwise controlled expression. She straightened her posture, meeting Susan's gaze head-on. "Actually," she said, her voice firm but level, "I'd like to speak to the manager." The words carried weight, not loud, but impossible to ignore. The moment marked a shift in the room, the air thick with unspoken words. Amara wasn't there to let this go unnoticed. The confrontation was just beginning. Mark Davis, the store manager, arrived within minutes, his demeanor an awkward mix of forced professionalism and unease. His crisp shirt and neatly combed hair couldn't mask the discomfort in his posture as he approached Amara and Susan. He offered a polite, almost robotic smile as he prepared to address the situation. Amara, standing tall and composed, began recounting the interaction with precision, her voice steady despite the emotions simmering beneath the surface. As she detailed Susan's dismissive remarks and thinly veiled insults, Susan interrupted, her voice defensive and rushed. "I was just trying to protect the merchandise," she said, glancing nervously at Mark. "We've had incidents before." Susan's words lingered in the air, their meaning obvious despite her attempt to soften them. Mark shifted his weight uncomfortably, his gaze flickering between Amara and Susan. "Ms. Jackson," he began, his tone carefully neutral, "I sincerely apologize if there was any misunderstanding." The emphasis on misunderstanding was deliberate, an attempt to downplay the gravity of the situation. "I'm sure Susan was just trying to follow protocol." Amara's eyes narrowed slightly, her composed exterior revealing a hint of the frustration she held back. The hollow words felt like another slight, not just from Susan, but from the institution that stood behind her. "So, this is how you treat customers here?" Amara asked, her voice steady but heavy with restrained emotion. "Judging them based on your biases?" Mark cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "That's not what we intended," he muttered, his words evasive and devoid of real accountability. "We value all of our customers." Amara held his gaze for a moment longer, then took a step back. Her silence said more than words could. Without another word, she turned and walked out of the store, her dignity intact, but the sting of humiliation still fresh. This wasn't just about her. It was about something far greater. And as she stepped onto the busy street outside, she made herself a silent promise. This was far from over. That night, sitting in the quiet of her apartment, Amara opened her laptop and began typing. Her words poured out, raw and unfiltered, a reflection of the anger and exhaustion she had carried with her all day. She shared the details of what had happened in the jewelry store, not as a rant, but as a deeply personal plea for awareness. "It's not about the jewelry," she wrote, her hands trembling slightly as she pressed each key. "It's about the constant, exhausting fight to be treated with basic respect. The humiliation, the assumptions, the lack of accountability. It's a story too many of us know too well." She hit post, not knowing what to expect, but feeling the weight of the day lift slightly off her shoulders. By morning, her phone was flooded with notifications. Her post had gone viral, shared thousands of times across social media. The comments were a mix of outrage and solidarity. Strangers from across the country chimed in, sharing their own experiences with discrimination and pledging their support. Some called for boycotts. Others demanded immediate action from the store. Amara's words had tapped into something much larger than her own experience. It had become a rallying cry. Among the many people who saw her post was Claire Porter, Amara's mentor and a highly respected entrepreneur. Claire called without hesitation. "Amara," she said, her voice sharp with anger, "I'm furious. Furious for you and for everyone who has to go through this. But I have an idea. Something bigger than just demanding an apology." Amara listened as Claire outlined a plan, her anger slowly giving way to determination. The next day, Amara returned to the jewelry store, but she wasn't alone this time. Claire walked beside her, exuding authority, along with a sharp-suited attorney and a reporter from a major news outlet. As they stepped inside, the store was buzzing with customers, but the moment their group entered, the room fell silent. All eyes turned toward Amara, and she felt the shift in power settle firmly in her favor. The air was thick with anticipation. This was just the beginning. The grand reopening of the store, now renamed Radiance, was nothing short of transformative. The once cold and exclusive atmosphere of the jewelry shop had been replaced with warmth, inclusivity, and purpose. Every detail of the redesign reflected Amara's vision. The sparkling displays showcased pieces from diverse designers, talented artisans whose work had long been overlooked by the industry. Plaques next to each display highlighted their stories, emphasizing the value of their voices and experiences. A portion of the store's profits now went towards scholarships for aspiring Black jewelers, ensuring that future generations would have access to opportunities Amara had fought so hard to create. A sign near the entrance read, "Radiance, where every story shines," a simple yet powerful declaration of the store's new mission. On the day of the reopening, the store was packed with people. Some came to shop, others to show support, but all were united in celebrating a victory against discrimination. The energy in the room was electric. Conversations buzzed, laughter echoed, and cameras flashed as people captured the historic moment. Among the crowd was Ruth, a retired teacher with a quiet yet dignified presence. She waited patiently before approaching Amara, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "What you've done here," she said, her voice trembling. "It's more than a store. It's a beacon of hope." Amara smiled, her expression soft but full of conviction. "It's a step forward, for all of us," she replied, taking Ruth's hand gently. The day wasn't just about jewelry or business. It was about resilience and the power of taking a stand. Amara's journey had become a symbol of what could happen when injustice was met with determination and grace. Her actions inspired others to believe in their own ability to bring about change. The reopening of Radiance was more than a celebration. It was a testament to how even the deepest wounds could be transformed into brilliance, lighting the way forward for many.